Coming up on our newscast tonight. In response to an alarming occurrence of fatal fire incidents, President Moon Jae-in orders all-out measures to ensure such tragedies never take place again, including thorough checkups and the formation of a special team. High-profile global figures will be in Korea for the PyeongChang Winter Olympics. The sporting event, the biggest of its kind in Olympic history, will be an opportunity to garner greater international support in bringing peace to the peninsula. Another milestone for Korea's main stock index, the KOSPI surpasses the 2,600 mark to start the week. NEWSCENTER begins now. It's 8 p.m. here in Korea, live from our studio in Seoul. This is Arirang News Center. Welcome to our program. I'm Daniel Choi. Let's start with a meeting held between the president and his top aides. The Liberal leader called for the formation of a special task force on fire safety measures. Hwang Ho-jun has our top story.
President Moon Jae-in called for an overall safety check on fire-prone public facilities, as well as new safety measures to put an end to fire-related accidents.
그동안 안전을 뒷전으로 여기거나 비용의 낭비처럼 여겨왔던 안전불감증이나 적당주의야말로 우리가 청산해야 할 대표적인 적폐라고 할 수 있습니다.
That was the president speaking during Monday's meeting with his top aides, just a couple days after he visited the site of the hospital fire in Miryang last weekend, which, as of Monday morning, had resulted in 39 deaths. The fire in Miryang came just over a month after another fire in a commercial building that killed nearly 30 people in the city of Checheon. Since then, the Moon administration has been blamed by some for the deep flaws revealed in the nation's safety. The fires have been seen as a setback for President Moon's pledge to make the country safer, with the PyeongChang Winter Olympics coming up in a matter of days. President Moon said the fundamental cause of catastrophes like these lies in the past, a jab at the past two conservative administrations, which were focused more on external growth. But amid the finger-pointing, President Moon stressed that no one is blameless and asked all parties to put their full efforts into righting this wrong.
특히 정부는 구체적인 안전관리 책임이 지자체에 있거나 국회의 안전 관련 입법이 지체됐다 하더라도 국민의 생명과 안전에 대한 최종적인 책임은 정부에 있다는 더 큰 책임감을 가지고 총력을 다해 주기 바랍니다.
The South Korean president called for the creation of a special task force within the Blue House that will deal with fire safety measures. He also insisted that the government come up with new methods that will find every last problem with buildings across the country and let the public know about them. Even if it takes time, he said, they can't continue with business as usual. Several safety measures were suggested by the president, such as mandatory fire drills and installing an emergency button at larger facilities that will alert the authorities. When it comes to applying new safety rules to existing buildings, he asked his top aides to find a way that won't put too much financial pressure on building owners. Hwang Ho-jun, Arirang News.
The nation's top office also announced which high-profile global figures, including world leaders, are flying over to Korea to attend the PyeongChang Winter Olympics. Moon Geun-young zooms in on the list and how it could impact the government's diplomatic efforts.
Sports often bring a certain degree of drama, and perhaps never more so than when the two Koreas, rivals of over 6 decades, come together under the name of sports in the spirit of the Olympics. And international sporting mega events like the Olympic Games have stretched beyond sports and into the realm of diplomacy, oftentimes summit diplomacy. With South Korean President Moon Jae-in about to kick off his first multilateral diplomacy at home, yes, on the occasion of the 2018 Winter Olympic Games in PyeongChang, the Blue House on Monday unveiled a list of world leaders visiting the nation next month.
We expect some 2,943 athletes from 92 countries to participate in the Winter Olympics in PyeongChang next month. This is the largest in size for a Winter Olympics. We're also expecting 26 statesmen from 21 nations to visit South Korea.
President Moon's Liberal government is hoping that the North Olympic participation could mark the beginning of something bigger, of something beyond just sports.
Although there remains the challenge of denuclearizing North Korea, South Korea has been hoping to take the PyeongChang Olympics as an opportunity to let as many world leaders know as possible and garner support from the international community.
So it's certainly a disappointment for the Moon administration to see that just one head of state from the four key regional powers will be in attendance, as it would have definitely liked to see a stronger showing to set this diplomatic stage to diffuse tensions on the Korean peninsula. Nonetheless, the South Korean leader will take this opportunity to both host and flex his diplomatic muscle.
President Moon will hold a reception for leaders visiting the country for the PyeongChang Winter Olympic Games on the 9th of February, right before the opening ceremony. Now, he'll also hold separate meetings with 14 world leaders, including presidents of Germany and Slovenia, as well as the Secretary General of the United Nations. Now, we've also gotten reports that a Moon-Abe summit is in the works for the opening day, which, if realized, will be the first since a diplomatic row broke out over a controversial 2015 agreement over Japan's wartime sexual enslavement of Korean women. Moon Geon-young, Arirang News, The Blue House.
For the first time this year, a policy coordination meeting between the ruling party, government, and the presidential office was held. A wide range of pending issues, including the upcoming Winter Olympics and the hospital fire in Miryang, were discussed. Kim Min-ji has the highlights from that session.
South Korea's ruling party, government, and presidential office vowed all-out efforts to ensure the successful hosting of the PyeongChang Winter Olympics. During their first policy meeting of the year on Monday, they said the event will be an opportunity to raise Korea's national status and brand value, as well as reduce geopolitical risks. The ruling bloc also called on the opposition to avoid causing political strife regarding North Korea's participation.
It's foolish and regretful to use this prime opportunity to raise the country's status to instead trigger a political conflict. Now is the time for us to lay low and put down our personal interests, and instead ask for the understanding of the people and cooperation from the opposition. Nobody can guarantee what will happen on the peninsula afterwards. That is why we need more effort and sincerity. We believe the Olympics will not just bring economic benefits, but will be a step towards protecting the peninsula from the threat of war.
To further promote the Games, the government is also considering offering temporary visa waiver programs for Chinese visitors and Southeast Asian tour groups that have tickets for Olympic events. In addition, drivers will be exempt from paying toll fees on highways in 8 regions of Gangwon province during the Olympic period, while all state-operated highways will be free of charge over the Lunar New Year holidays, which fall between February 15th and 18th this year. As for the hospital fire in Miryang last week, which killed 39 people, the three sides promised to swiftly find the exact cause of the fire and also agreed to step up safety inspections to prevent further accidents.
We will make sure there's no negligence in supporting the bereaved families and in dealing with the aftermath of the disaster. From the cause of the fire and who is responsible, and to prevent this from happening again, we will be carrying out a full inspection of the facilities and implement overall safety measures.
And to ensure people can have a peace of mind over the Lunar New Year break, they vowed to swiftly implement measures to support the vulnerable and micro businesses in the wake of the minimum wage hike, and also called on the National Assembly to pass urgent bills related to people's livelihoods during the February parliamentary session. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
The government briefings on policy for 2018 comes to an end. In today's session, the Culture and Education Ministries, as well as the Korea Communications Commission, laid out their action plans for the rest of the year. Lee Ji-won has the details.
Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon, several other top officials, and ordinary citizens were briefed on this year's action plans by the Ministries of Culture and Education and the Korea Communications Commission on Monday.
The policies of the Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism are focused mainly on providing fair and equal opportunity for artists, boosting innovative businesses in the cultural sphere, and bringing culture closer to the people.
To support innovative growth in culture, sports, and tourism, the ministry plans to boost startups and creative projects in those three areas by creating funds worth around $140 million for each of them. Specifically for the tourism industry, the ministry will invest in attracting tourists from new and growing markets, including Southeast Asian countries and India. The sports industry will also see some innovative changes, for example, by the use of the latest sensor and graphic technologies in sports training to help athletes improve their performance. The ministry also designated 2018 as the year of the book and will support projects to promote reading, such as transforming more ordinary bookstores into cultural spaces where people can enjoy beverages and attend lectures by authors. The Ministry of Education also seeks to implement innovative systems that nurture talent for the fourth industrial revolution. To move away from education focused on exams and competition, the ministry will introduce a free learning year during which first-year middle school students will not have to take exams but rather attend classes more focused on participation and discussion. The KCC focused its policies on providing broadcasting content for the people and protecting their personal information. The Commission will strengthen its monitoring and reporting systems to provide accurate news and to block inappropriate content. It also wants to make sure people's personal information is kept safe when it's sent to businesses overseas. For that, the KCC will encourage firms to follow a set of international guidelines and principles issued by APEC.
The Ministry of Education and the KCC have said they will also improve on their communication with the people by gathering public opinion and reflecting it in their policies. 이지원, Arirang News.
Members of the Presidential Committee on the Fourth Industrial Revolution also met for talks. The main topic in its latest gathering since October's launch, smart city plans. Kim Hae-sung shares with us what was discussed.
The government's Committee on the Fourth Industrial Revolution held its first meeting of the year on Monday to discuss measures related to the so-called Smart City Framework, a way of using information technology to improve the way cities are run.
The Fourth Industrial Revolution has a huge effect socioeconomically. Smart City is a platform using related technologies and services. Today, we will deliberate on a Smart City development plan that has been worked on by government officials and private sector experts since last November.
The Smart City platform combines infrastructure, technology, and services. It uses tech like the Internet of Things and big data to share information on things like traffic, transportation, or the weather, which improves efficiency by saving energy and labor costs.
Our Smart City plan has two main parts, providing development plans for cities based on their development stage. That goes for both new cities and old cities. For new cities, smart technologies will be applied from the design stage to final construction to drive innovative growth.
One of the new cities is in an area in Busan and another is in the country's administrative hub of Sejong. They'll become test beds for cutting-edge technologies like artificial intelligence, smart farms, and driverless cars. For instance, the government envisions a city connected by the Internet of Things, electric vehicles powered by renewables, and deliveries by drone, all of which would help increase efficiency. As for existing so-called old cities, the government plans to save energy by using renewable sources as a form of urban power generation. The broad picture has been unveiled, but it's still in its initial stage. For the plan to be carried out in a sustainable way, details need to be fleshed out on things like the government's budget, cooperation between the private and public sectors, and a system for evaluating performance. Kim Hae-sung, Arirang News.
Moving on to other stories now, South Korea plans to send its skiers using a chartered flight to cross over to the north. The trip for a two-day joint training could happen as early as Wednesday. Kim Young-gil gets us up to speed with the ongoing inter-Korean exchanges.
South Korea's Unification Ministry said Monday that it will send its non-Olympic skiers to North Korea's Masinyeong ski resort for a two-day joint training using a chartered plane. The Galma airport is some 45 minutes away from the Masinyeong ski resort.
North Korea will provide South Korea with the necessary conveniences. We will not pay fees for using the North's airport and airspace, as such a payment could go against international sanctions.
If Seoul charters a plane from an airline which is currently providing flights to the U.S., then it would violate U.S. sanctions. Therefore, Seoul is pondering over sending a chartered airline that does not have flights to the U.S. U.S. President Trump announced a set of sanctions in September that include banning vessels and aircraft that have visited North Korea from visiting the U.S. within 180 days.
When it comes to joint events, we are closely consulting with the US and the international community in a bid not to spark a row over possible violations of sanctions.
The two Koreas also agreed to hold a joint cultural performance in Mount Kumgang on the northeast coast ahead of the PyeongChang Winter Olympics. However, Seoul may have to bring refined petroleum products to the north when it holds the cultural event, as Pyongyang said it will be difficult for it to supply power to a facility built by the South Korean side. But delivering refined petroleum products to the north could be tricky, as the UN and US have either put a cap or banned exports of crude oil and petroleum products to North Korea. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
And at an international security forum, the nation's defense chief used some strong words to warn Pyongyang against using nukes to attack Seoul or Washington. According to our Oh Jung-hee, he also reassured in dealing with the regime's threats, South Korea's non-proliferation stance remains unchanged.
North Korea will be wiped off the world map should it use nuclear weapons on South Korea or the United States. That's what South Korea's Defense Minister Song Young-moo confidently stated on Monday at a security forum in Singapore. When asked whether Pyongyang has a coercive purpose to its nuclear weapons program, Minister Song said the North attacking South Korea or the U.S. won't happen for real, and that the nuclear development program is just a part of the Kim Jong-un regime's propaganda strategy. He stressed that it's, quote, anachronistic to say Pyongyang will use its nuclear weapons, but added, if it does, then the regime will be erased off the world map. And to deal with this threat, Minister Song gave assurances that South Korea won't be deploying tactical nuclear weapons, but developing stronger conventional weapons to keep peace, not go to war. The remarks came during a question and answer session after Minister Song's keynote speech at the 2018 Fullerton Forum, the very first as Seoul's defense chief. During his address, he stressed the most urgent and grave security threat in the Asia-Pacific region is Pyongyang's nuclear and missile development, and said South Korea will not under any circumstances accept North Korea as a nuclear state. He emphasized that Seoul will work towards a complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula through peaceful measures like dialogue and negotiation, saying sanctions and pressure will only be used as means of achieving this. Mentioning that North Korea could have been secretly trading with other nations using foreign vessels, Minister Song urged all nations in the region to abide by UN sanctions and up the pressure on the regime. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
Turning to some stock market action now, the KOSPI hit an all-time intraday record on Monday, surpassing the 2,600 mark for the first time ever. Experts are brimming with optimism about the future of the nation's main index. Kim Mo-gyun explains why.
Korea's benchmark KOSPI index has hit another record high for the third consecutive trading day in a row, breaking the 2,600 mark on Monday. After peaking at a record high of 2,607 during trading hours, the benchmark KOSPI closed at 2,598.19, still managing to continue its upward streak for 5 consecutive days. The new intraday record comes just 3 months after the index broke the 2,500 mark, which is a month shorter than what it took to break the 2,500 mark from 2,400. Most large caps traded mixed, with market heavyweights Samsung Electronics and carmaker Hyundai Motors gaining 0.87% and 1.31% respectively. Shares of the nation's leading chipmaker SK Hynix and steelmaker POSCO edged down by less than 1% each. By sector, gains were evident in most industries such as pharmaceuticals, electronics, construction, and securities. An expert in the industry attributed the rise to both internal and external factors, such as continued corporate earnings and strong gains on Wall Street last week, adding that the upward trend would likely continue for the year 2018 and beyond.
But with the PyeongChang Olympics and some of the peace talk that's happening, and also continuation of strong growth, and also very strong export numbers. So all that combined, we think that our target of 2,900 is very reachable, and it might even overshoot probably within this year.
As for Korea's junior index, the tech-heavy KOSPI also reached a record high on Monday, closing at 927.05, up 1.53% from the previous session's close. Kim Mo-gyun, Arirang News.
A major local online shopping mall and one of South Korea's biggest currency exchange are joining forces to develop a system that would allow purchases using cryptocurrency. Although not an entirely new concept, it is still foreign to many here in the nation. Lee Jung-yeon provides a closer look.
A major project is underway in South Korea for virtual currency. One of the country's biggest online shopping malls, We Make Price, and the largest local crypto exchange, Bithumb, are working on a system that'll see virtual currencies used on a large scale for their original purpose, namely buying things. Currently, Bithumb and We Make Price are waiting on government regulations on virtual currency to be finalized before launching the service. If this were to become possible, it would mean that 12 types of virtual currency, including Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Ripple, could be used to make purchases online. It's not the first time in Korea that a vendor has accepted virtual currency, but it is the first time that a major online retailer has done so. Crypto prices are notorious for their volatility, so transactions will reflect the coin's value in real time. But not everyone is convinced.
I think for now, the prices of cryptocurrency fluctuate too much, so I would think twice before using it as money. But it will be convenient if I could.
Virtual currency isn't yet backed by the government, so I think there is a risk. I'm not sure, but I feel like it's too soon to be used as currency.
In the United States, Bitcoin is already accepted by major online platforms such as Overstock, Expedia, and Microsoft. Japanese electronics store Bic Camera has also started accepting it at their brick-and-mortar stores. So there's evidence that cryptos are gaining a foothold, but experts see significant downsides.
Current crop doesn't really have a central authority trying to stabilize the prices, so I think they're working against themselves and trying to make this a currency. The value is just too volatile.
Still, the expert says it might be worth a try.
It'll be an interesting experiment. I think a lot of people are going to look at this as perhaps trying to figure out what the future path of the cryptocurrency will be, whether it will be able to fulfill its original intention as a currency, or whether it'll just be a niche asset.
He also speculates that it could be years before the value of cryptos is stable enough for it to become a mainstream form of currency. Lee Jung-yeon, Arirang News.
Time to turn to Michelle Park at the Weather Center for the updates you need. Michelle, conditions were somewhat a bit bearable during the weekend, but it seems like the Arctic weather is here to stay. How much longer will this cold spell last?
Daniel, I can tell you that at least until tomorrow morning, you should be bundling up from head to toe because conditions will be freezing. But into the afternoon, temperatures will increase significantly with many regions, including Seoul, finally leaving the negative readings. Until then, cold wave alerts are in effect, remaining in effect across the whole country. Now, Seoul will wake up to minus 11 degrees Celsius tomorrow, while Daegu and Busan begins the day at minus 8 and minus 6 degrees, respectively. And during the afternoon, Seoul makes up to 1 degrees, while Gwangju and Busan will be 1 or 2 degrees warmer. Now, the rest of our week will stay partly cloudy, but there are chances of fine dust levels to be rising tomorrow, and stay updated for the forecast. And also freezing conditions will also return by the start of over the weekend. I'll leave you with the weather conditions around the world.
That's all we have for you on tonight's edition of Arirang News Center. Wherever you may be tuning in from, thank you for staying with us.